This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
In the Art Marketing Minute, my goal is to answer your art marketing questions. Send me your burning questions to eric@artmarketing.com, or you can do a video question at artmarketing.com/questions. I'd love to have them. I have my producer read the questions. Amadine is from France, and she said that today she's feeling a little extra overly sensitive about her accent because it's her birthday. Oh, we need some I don't know if we have any birthday music or not. Let's try it. Anyway, it's her birthday, and we we want to congratulate her, give her a thumbs up and an applause. And anyway, she was talking to her family back in France, and so she said she kind of picked up some of the more French. So Amadine, now you're going to be overly self-conscious about this. What's our first question?
Thank you, Eric. So the first question is from Emilia Cantor from Costa Rica. We had a question from Emilia before, so this is a follow-up question. I've heard you say many times to not approach a gallery through email, but what can we do as foreign artists to approach galleries internationally? I'm already a public figure in Costa Rica. I had many shows. I'm linked with real estate and national galleries, and one of my current 2023 goals is to find international representation. Which do you think would be the most correct way to approach foreign galleries without contact or the possibility to visit their shows?
All right, I think we got cut off there. To visit their shows and to meet them is what she was going to say. Well, first off, don't listen to an old coot like me, because if you've got an idea, go for it. Don't let me hamper you. But I do have ideas about this. I mean, here's the real reason that I say this about galleries. I was sitting in an art gallery one time talking to the gallery director, and he said, "Do you mind if I open mail while we're talking, because I can't keep up with it?" And he pulled out this big box, and I said, "What is that?" He said, "Well, these are all submissions from artists." He said, "I get 150 of these a month." He said, "I basically open them up, peek in them, and throw them away." And he said, "I get 10 times as many emails." He said, "Sometimes people drop in. I'll be with a client, they'll interrupt me, I'll kill a sale." He said, "Artists don't think about these things and how much time." He said, "We spend a lot of time dealing with artist submissions that we don't even want." And this is something you need to be thinking about, because you don't want to get a bad rap or reputation with somebody in a gallery. Now, they're inundated. And so in your particular case, because you're international, or you want to be internationally known, you're well known in Costa Rica, you have a story to tell, and you might want to consider emailing them, but I'd recommend against it. Best way to get into a gallery is to get invited in. That's what I think, and there are ways to do that. I talk about that in the book a little bit. But here's what we always want to do. You always want to think about, who is my customer and what do they want. In this particular case, who's your customer? It's an art gallery, right? You want them to bring your work into their gallery. So what does an art gallery want? Well, first off, they want quality. They want quality. They want artists that are quality. So when you're looking at websites, you've got to look at the quality of the work on their website and say, do I live up to it? Secondly, they want variety. And what I mean by that, some galleries will do modern and traditional. Most will do all modern or all traditional, but they want variety of subjects, and they want artists who can put together a portfolio of a lot of good work. Every artist can paint one good painting, but can they paint 50 or 100? Can they produce enough work? That's what they want. You are inventory to them. They love you, they care about you, but your inventory. And if you can't produce enough work, they're not going to make any money on you. They want to make money, and they want proven artists who are easy to sell and who have a national brand. Because somebody who has a national brand, somebody will walk into the artist and say, "Hey, do you have a CW Mundy, or do you have a Clyde Aspavig?" That and that they can get more money. somebody with a big brand, and they want things that are big brand. And so if you don't have a national brand, or you don't have a strong enough brand, not every gallery gets all those, national brand artists. But if your brand isn't strong enough, no matter how famous you are in Costa Rica, it's not going to help you in America or France or other places. It's a story. They love stories, and it's something they can talk about. Well, if they decide they're going to have you, they can say, well, this artist is in the National Gallery in Costa Rica. That that'll help them sell things. But the National Gallery in Costa Rica is probably a whole lot different than the National Gallery in Washington D.C. So I think email contact is a disadvantage because they're going to filter you out. Your email might not even get to them. I have two different people who do nothing but go through my email and filter it out. Anything that's important gets to me. And when you send me something, it gets to me. But, we all get a lot of junk mail and stuff. I don't have to deal with as much of that. Now, um, so how do you solve this problem? How do you get galleries in other countries to want you? Well, the first question is you've got to ask yourself, why? What do I want to accomplish? Sometimes we have these visions of what what something looks like and what it's going to be happening there, but why do you want to do that? I mean, when you're dealing with other countries, now you're dealing with special packaging, probably more difficult packaging. You're talking about shipping things longer distance, higher expenses. I don't know if there's any import taxes or things like that that you or they have to deal with. But there are a lot of things you want to consider and make sure you really want it if that's what you want. Now, I had a gallery owner tell me that he watches artists who advertise. Sometimes he keeps an eye on them for years, he said, and if their work is consistent or getting better, and he sometimes will call them and invite them into the gallery. He said he also secretly has a different name and he watches them on social media and Instagram. He watches their behavior. He watches what they're posting. Are they posting good things? Are they posting bad things? Are they inconsistent? Are they posting pictures of their drunken parties and their head in the toilet? He said, because when I see that, I instantly write them off. He said, because I have to have people who are perceived as professionals. Um, he says that artists who advertise prove that they're good business people because they understand what it takes. They're increasing their value, they're increasing their chance of success, they're increasing their brand, they're developing a collector base. And he said that way we don't have to do all of that for them. He said that's high risk. I want people that people already want. I want them to come into the gallery and say, hey, I need an Eric Rhoads painting, right? So the advantage for you, if you're building a brand, if you're advertising yourself, you're building a brand, you're helping people become aware of you, but that's not enough. You have to create interest, you have to create desire, and then eventually you have to create purchase. And that's about longevity and consistency and always being there. Because what happens is somebody will see an ad one time and they won't act on it. They'll just see it because, people flip through things, but they might go, oh, that's interesting. And then they'll go, next time they see it, they go, "Oh, I like that artist." And the next time they see it, they go, "Oh, I like that artist. I want to watch that artist." And the next time they see it, they might go, "Well, I'd kind of like to own something from that artist." So now you're getting them to interest and desire. And then at some point, if you keep reminding them, they might see something. They'll go, "Oh, that's the painting. That's the one I'm going to pick up the phone and buy." And you also have to understand that people are in and out all the time, right? Some people feel rich one day and poor another day, depending on what's going on in their life. They just inherit some money or they just get a bonus. Or if they have to put a new roof on their house, they're feeling poor. And so you want to always be there because you never know when they're going to be in the market. It's their birthday. They decide they're going to spend some money on themselves and they're going to pick a painting in this magazine today and you better be there. And the one time you're not there is the day you're going to miss out on that sale. So it's a big game. It's something that has to occur. But what I want you to do is think in terms of um, you're fishing, right? I'll use a fishing scenario. So you throw your line in the water and you're always throwing your line in the water and you catch a fish and then you take the fish off and you throw it back in the water versus you take the fish off and you throw it in your pond. And so you catch another fish and you throw it in your pond and you keep catching fish and you throw them in their pond and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they reproduce, and there's more fish, and eventually you eat them, right? And you have enough fish to take care of you the rest of your life, right? The whole idea here is you want to advertise to bring in fish, and then you want to get them to come to you. They want the ad to go to your website to sign up for your newsletter. You got to have some special incentives to get them to do that. Now they're in your pond. Now, once they're in your pond, you feed them, you develop them, you talk to them, you can talk to them a little bit more frequently. You're still advertising because people are in and out of markets all the time, but you still advertise to constantly bring more fish in. Some of the fish in your pond are going to end up buying things. Some of the fish outside of your pond are going to end up buying things, but you've got to constantly be developing it. So you can also tag your ads. You can tag them with things like credibility builders, like I'm proud to say that I am in the National Gallery of Art collection in Costa Rica. Or you can also say things like, I'll be adding one new gallery this year, or you could say only one new gallery this year. You want to create scarcity. You want to also not look like you're desperate. If you just say now seeking galleries, that feels desperate. But if you say, uh, uh, now adding one new gallery this year, and by the way, you can see me in these four other galleries. That way, it's like, oh, this is special. And then maybe somebody will see that and say, okay, I want to come on board. All right. Lots more about that kind of thing in the book. Almadine, what do we have next?
The second question is from Alicia from Maryland. As our world heads more into technology and the younger generations don't invest in fine art as their parents or grandparents, where does that leave us artists who love to paint and draw? Should we start moving with the times into more digital times? How are things changing and advancing, and what does that mean for the fine art?
Well, Alicia, you know, do you really believe that's true? Have you seen evidence of that? Do you have any data points? Do you have a lot of data points? You might be telling yourself a story. This is something we all do. We hear a thing or two, we hear somebody say something. Next thing you know, we assume everything is like that. Now, let me give you an example. I used to be a radio DJ, and one of the DJs that I worked with said, we should be playing this song. Everybody's calling for this song. Well, the reality was everybody wasn't calling for that song. It's just that he happened to pick up the line a couple of times and he happened to catch somebody calling for that song. But we had data points. We put check marks with every song everybody asked for. And that song wasn't really getting requested, but he believed it because that was his story. So you've got to ask yourself, am I believing a story? Now, here's the news. The news is that the grandparents and the parents who bought art at young ages, uh, that didn't really exist. I mean, it might exist in a couple of cases, but you know, young people typically don't buy a lot of art. And the kind of art that they're buying when they're young, when I was, I don't know, 17, 18, 19, 20, 17, I think I saw this really cool poster of a man with a sword and a lightning bolt, and he was sitting on a horse with wings. And I bought that poster and I probably paid $25 for it. I thought it was a lot of money. It was framed and I hung it up in my apartment. And that was my art, my big art purchase. But what happens is our art tastes change. When I was 20, I probably had different art up than when I was 17. When I became 30, uh, that changed. In my 30s, I bought photographs because I was into photography. And in my 40s, I bought my first painting on a trip with my wife. We were walking through New Orleans and we saw an artist and we thought, oh, we've never seen an artist before. And we bought a painting and it was probably $200 and it was a lot of money to us at the time. And then later, as I got older, I started. We took a couple more trips. Decided to buy paintings on trips. We wandered into galleries. We'd buy paintings, and then as I got older and I got more money, all of a sudden I'm spending. I remember when the first time I spent $5,000 on a painting, I was like really nervous because I thought, how could anybody spend $5,000 on a painting? now I look at that and go, wow, that's a bargain because that painting today is probably worth $50,000, but that's a whole nother story. So everybody goes through these phases. And by the way, everybody's in a different place. They're in a different place mentally, they're in a different place physically. People have cycles in their lives, and we might assume that young people aren't interested because they're into digital art and they're into NFTs, and that's true. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But I have a friend who is a young tech entrepreneur. He's probably not even 40 yet. He's probably not quite a billionaire, but he's close. And what does he do with his money? He buys art, and he's buying it online. He's buying it on auction sites. He wanders into galleries on trips, and he's buying good art. And he told me, he says, he was a little embarrassed because he asked me to go to lunch with him one time because he wanted to know more about art. And he said, I'm a little embarrassed because I only can spend $25,000 a month in art. And I said, well, you're ahead of most. And so don't assume anything. There are cycles, there are interests in different communities and sub communities. What people in New York buy might be different than people in Brooklyn or people in Chicago or people in LA or California. It depends on your interest. If you're a modern house person, I know people who have vacation homes. And so, I have a friend that has a home in Telluride. Guess what's hanging in his house in Telluride? Western paintings. Guess what's hanging in his modern apartment in New York? Modern paintings. Guess what's hanging at his house in Connecticut? Traditional paintings. So, everybody's got a little different taste at different times. And so don't get all freaked out about that. When you're selling art, though, you want to think about this. You're in a business. And when you're in business, things are constantly changing. And you have to keep an eye on it and you have to watch the data points. And there might be a time when nobody's buying art, like you say, could happen. And but things could change. Kim Kardashian all of a sudden starts talking about paintings. Everybody's going to want paintings, or Damien John, or or whomever. And so, just think about that. And also, there's a group of people who are what I call success-driven people. Right? They're the people who buy Lamborghinis, people who drive Bentleys. We may not be able to relate to them because we're not doing those things. But the reality is that they will buy status items because it makes them feel better, and they want to kind of show off who they are. And so what do they buy? They buy status items in art. And they wander into a gallery and they see a painting that's $250,000 or $1 million or $500,000, and they go, I'll take that. Makes them feel great. And it may be something that they love. It may be something that is a status piece because it's a famous artist. You never know. I mean, so there's just a lot of different things. But um, one thing that people do is they hang brands, right? Those people, they hang brands, right? They hang brand clothes in their closets, and they have brand cars in their multiple garages, and they have big mansions that are branded mansions, and the artwork are brands. If you own a Clyde Aspavig painting, that's a big brand, and that's it's something that hopefully the collector will go, I love it, that's why I bought it. But there are people who do buy paintings because they're famous. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine who just passed away was a billionaire, and he lived at the top of Beverly Hills in this big mansion that he bought from famous movie director. And I walked into the house for a meeting. I walk first off, is the garage doors open, and there's a Bentley, and there's a Rolls, and there's a sports car, and there's a bunch of things. We go in the house, and we had our meeting, and I said, I see you have a lot of art. Can you tell me about your art? And he said, well, yeah, I'll walk you around. He said, I don't know much about it. I have people who do that for me. And I thought, oh. And so he walks me around. He said, well, that's a Jasper Johns. And I said, well, tell me about that. He says, well, I don't really know anything about it, but I bought it from this guy and I paid $1 million for it. And that's what was important to him. He ended up selling that painting for like $50 million or something, which is pretty cool. But anyway, everybody's got a different reason. Not everybody's going to be passionate for the same reason. There's no right or wrong. It's just you have to don't tell yourself stories. Now, art dealers have to keep up with trends and popularity and what's happening in Hong Kong or Chicago or Moscow or wherever. And so, with the internet the way it is, everybody can see everything and everybody, and so you can be discovered. But don't get caught up in assumptions. Assumptions will hurt you. Um, uh, I get caught up in assumptions. I get wrong most of the time. I'll hear a little piece of evidence and I'll assume that's true for everybody. You look for evidence, if there's no hard evidence, then it may not be a trend. And I end up making stuff up because I think I hear something and it changes my attitude. But be careful, because the stories that you tell yourself will limit your thinking. And if you think no one wants it, guess what happens? That will become true for you. So manage your mindset. Read books on mindset. Read Think and Grow Rich. Um, Manage mindset, and mindset has to do with this thinking. So it may be true. I don't think it's true. I just think the timing is different. And by the way, there's education that needs to take place. We have to educate consumers constantly. We have to get our stuff in front of them, and you got to look for creative ways to do it. That's what I do for a living. That's why people advertise in my magazines, because they want, we have all these billionaires who read Fine Art Connoisseur. They want to be in front of them. I get it. I have galleries that sell really expensive paintings to those people. Anyway, that is today's Art Marketing Minute.
This has been the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads. You can learn more at artmarketing.com.